Welcome to Portals of Perception and to the Universalis Project, I think number 15. I'm here with Karen Heney and Kyriaki Nikandrou. Welcome.
Hello, Karen. Hello, Aviv. Good to be with you.
And welcome, Aviv, and welcome, Kyriaki, and it's good to be here.
So this is one of those spontaneous times we get together. We spent time yesterday in a meditative, contemplative space with the Epoch Network, exploring adjacent spaces to the Universalis inquiry. And so I emailed you last night, said, well, what do you think? Is there anything for us to harvest and try to be with? And we waited for this morning just a couple of hours ago because we were all very busy. And the sense is, yes, let's explore. And there was a particular meditative, contemplative group process, circle process that we engendered yesterday. And I thought that there is a way for me to try to describe the kind of inquiry that catalyzed it, and then that we could try to go through it step by step. And rather than be in a meditation, in a silent meditation, which doesn't work for harvesting content for the Portals Project and the Universalis endeavor, that we have a conversation about it. And we, in a way, seek to emulate the interior discovery process that occurs when we meditate and contemplate together in a circle with a circle of friends in a large group, which we did yesterday on Zoom, imagining that we are a large circle of people all around the planet, holding those inquiries in mind, and in a way releasing ourselves from the limitation that often occurs when there is a large group of people and one voice is speaking. And when you go into a quiet space, everybody gets to speak inside their own contemplative arena. And there is something unique and profound that occurs and is made possible by the generative field and ecology that we are creating. So what I have in mind is to describe that and to emulate the process, and even before that engage with a bigger picture inquiry of how does it relate to the Universalis Project. So how about this as a plan? You had no time to hear about it in advance. This is all emerging live. We didn't do any rehearsal for this. We're going to go live. How about this as an approach for the exploration?
Yes, it's propositional, and let's try. Let's experiment. Yesterday we had music and narration, so this will be slightly different, but let's try.
Excellent.
Yes, I think this is a wonderful proposition. I'm very happy to engage.
All right, so participative, propositional discovery journey into some Universalis prospects. And let me bring this slide. And where I will begin is this question, because this is what I thought about on the run-up to this journey yesterday and this morning. Because we've been exploring the idea of a universalis human arising for a couple of years. And it started with this idea of 1,000 faces of a universalis human. And we've been exploring variety of dimensions and facets in our previous 14 conversations. And so the inquiry that I presented to myself was, where can we see, where can we sense the arising of a universalis human? And how do we get to participate in this birthing process of a universalis human? And with it, what constitutes its womb? These are big questions, and in some ways they've been with us all along the journey. And what I will offer as a starter, and then invite you to comment to, is, first of all, where is it not arising? Well, the universalis human is not going to arise on the trees, the beautiful trees in front of me, because the trees are the trees. They are these great, beautiful trees that grow here in the Pacific Northwest. They grow themselves. They don't produce a new version of themselves. They replicate themselves. They're also beautiful and rich lives around in the animal kingdom, in the fauna life, roaming all around, deers and all the rest of it. It's not likely that we will see the universalis human arising from them. The universalis human will also not arise through some techno-utopian version of ourselves. We are not likely to find the universalis human arising in silicon or in sophisticated computer chips, as much as people speak about the idea of the accelerated development of general artificial intelligence that will and is already exceeding in many ways human capacities. My conviction, my belief is that we are not likely to see, we're not gonna see what we're describing with the birthing of a new human possibility in the rise of a universalis human in these realms. Rather, the suggestion is that the universalis permission, the universalis possibility, the universalis activation occurs inside us and in between us, and that what constitutes its womb is we constitute a womb, a bit like the idea of the babushka dolls. We are evolving and developing a new wiring, a new possibility inside us and in between us. And that therefore, wherever you will find a group of people who are interested in how we humans are evolving, both to solve the existential problems that the meta crisis brought to us, and even more so to do so by unlocking our latent potential, that wherever you find a group of people engaging with these ideas and premises, the way we go about cultivating our interior inquiries and contemplations, individually and collectively, we are leaning into these possibilities, which is how can we be part, co-creative, co-participative part of the rise of a universal human. And we have explored in many ways of the universal humans. We describe the various capacities and faces and dimensions of that in our previous conversations. So what occurred to me was that what we've been inside of which we are about to unfold in this meditative process, was one example of a collective group process, a circle, a global circle that comes together to be in a contemplative inquiry, in a meditative contemplative inquiry, that when we do so, we constitute a womb that can birth and facilitate the birthing inside each one of us for the sensitivities and capabilities and connective processes that we are describing with the idea of a universalis human. So how about this as a premise for what we are about to explore? What would you say to this? What comes alive for you about these inquiries?
Yeah, as I'm looking at these slides and thinking about the universalis human, it's suddenly presenting itself as something quite different, in the sense that if you look at a stem, you never quite know there's going to be the beautiful flower that arises at the end. And it's not like it goes from a step to a step, a kind of linear stepping process of human evolution to the birthing of the universalis human. It's as different as the flower is from the stem. It's a different order of human. And the way it's turning up in this moment is just very much to do with if the human form and the human design and the humans that have been on the planet for millennium are more planetary and more organically aligned. The universalis human has almost a completely different origination. And the sense is that yes, we still have the same form and we still may look more or less the same, but it's to do with the energies that we're processing and the potential for a universal integration, which is, I'm not going to say anymore because this is the beginning of the conversation. So I think I'll leave it there and just let it rest in that perception of this complete change in perception, permission, and parameters of what is actually possible for each and every human, and how different. That's the other key feature of the universalis human, is that because this origination and the womb of the mutuality that enables it to some extent is endorsing and allowing the difference and the liberation to kind of manifest and be expressed.
And I would like to add also that the notion of a womb represents a special ecology. It's an ecology that is protected, it's sealed, it's within the presence of the mother, it's fed by something bigger. So I find very interesting the meditative process that we went in yesterday, in how we can create ecologies that are like a womb, that allow a different state of being that cause ripples. And I think it's a lot in what we bring into this state and what we leave outside of the womb. For example, if we bring respect, if if respect is a collective presence that we bring in the womb, it's not just a mental idea or a behavioral science that programs our exchange. It is also a presence. It is also a different atmosphere, a different feeling, a different sensation. It's a whole electromagnetic state. So, yeah, this is a starter.
Yeah, wonderful. So let us carry forward into this exploration both your contributions. The imagery of, in my mind, the sunflower turning to the sun, and or a daffodil, or a rose, or any flower, where Karen, what you invited us to meditate and contemplate is the imagery that the flower represents a completely different new octave to the stem. And the inquiry of what would be the analogous in a human development journey. I mean, right there, we could press pause and be in the contemplation of that, and that will become a group meditation for us. The idea is to exactly abide with these kind of potentials. And Kyriaki, what you're offering is the significance of the ecology we can together create. And then the properties, the qualities, the energetic qualities we bring into those ecologies, such as respect and such as encouragement and inter-support, and what do they allow, and also what do they leave outside of the ecology, such that the ecology offers indeed the container. So let's carry these into the discovery we are embarking on. And I now want to lead us into this circle, abiding circle meditation, accompanied by Karen's artwork behind on the slide. And the question I pose is, what does abiding circle meditation enable? Again, in the specific context of the suggestion that one of the avenues of exploration, one of the pathways, whenever we come together, or any group of people, is how do we constitute together an ecology, a womb-like ecology that can support and give rise to new discoveries, to new perceptions, to new feelings, to new sentiments that we associate with the latent universal human that is now activating and awakening. Because what we are suggesting is this is not merely breaking the world record in the 100-meter dash or in high jump, in the sense of extending horizontally the human capacity and speed in any other athletic sport where the definition of the activity is already there, and you have somebody trying to break that record, as they do in the Olympic Games. What we are inviting in this ecology is more to be discovered through feelings, through sentiments, through leaning into what we don't know, and hovering in the liminality of not knowing, because right there, in that synaptic cleft of possibility, something else can find us. So my first response to this inquiry was, well, first thing, we get to abide individually together. We get to abide individually together with a connective inquiry chain, because the mechanics of this particular process, meditative process, this abiding circle meditation, is one where we introduce a phrase or a stem, very much in the way you describe, Karen, and we let each person stay for 3 or 4 minutes with the stem to discover the flower that will emerge with them. So as an example, the first stem we looked at yesterday, and we had a narrating voice that read this, offered the following stem. I arrived in this life fully equipped with a can-do model, soul, spirit, and a seed of universal consciousness. And we will go into not completely silent space, because very soft music will play in the background with one of our musicians, and we each get to abide with this stem. So when I abide with this, the first realization that I have is that I stop after the second word, and then I stop again after the fifth word. I arrived in this life. I arrived in this life. There is a powerful sense and mystery for me to wonder and abide with this sense that I have arrived in this life. And not only have I arrived here, I have arrived here fully equipped with a can-do model, soul and spirit, and a seed of universal consciousness. So I feel, when I listen to these words and to this invitation to abide with this, that I am submerging in mystery. I'm submerging in the mystery that this is a loving and caring universe, because it doesn't just bring us to life here to discover how to create for ourselves the infrastructure to be able to go through life. No, we are already given a fivefold model, human model, with all the internal organs and all the inner lives and all the capacities to help us navigate and attend to all that we need to attend to. And a soul and a spirit, which represent tremendous mystery, and a seed of universal consciousness. So for me, when I first listen to this stem, it actually brings me into immense space, to void. Initially I go blank. I don't know what to think, not because I don't know what to think, but because it is so vast. And I give myself permission to stay in the vastness without having to immediately manufacture a response. Actually being in the abiding space with vastness is where it begins for me. Let me pause here and give you a chance to speak to this.
This verse causing me feelings of great gratitude, a sense of being part of a bigger scheme, and having arrived in this life equipped with a can-do model also fills me with a sense of confidence and value for being enough, been already enough. And also maybe a responsibility for the richness of having been fully equipped, especially with a soul, a spirit, and a seed of universal consciousness. So, right from the start, it sheds light, it throws light in the magnitude of life, in the preciousness of human life. And as you said, it opens a space that we are part of something bigger.
This had a sense of timelessness about it, that and the sense of a seed, something small, and each life and each of the stars is representative of a seed, and they're all different. They're all different configurations, and the sense is that of no time and a lot of time, in the sense that each life may come at a particular time in terms of an epoch time, a date of birth, and our perception of a time. But human life comes from the realms where past lives, future lives, it is all somehow connected with the can-do model, with the soul and the spirit and the specificness of the human and the specificness of the human part within this greater perception. And the other sense is that we are not life. There is a flow of life that can come through each human, but we are not life itself. And the can-do model and everything that is gifted is for each life to do something with that flow of life, to be expressive and creative and allow that richness to exist and to be in its particular timing.
Yes. So you are now helping us to begin to drop into the deeper sense of that, and how some of the way to be with this is through feelings and through intuitions. And I'm just abiding for a moment with the phrase you offered, Karen, that we are not life, where I think we are not life, although we can become the expression of life, and in that sense we then become for the moment in time that we are in this can-do model, we can become the celebration of life. So this is not a contradiction, it's not a polarity, it's an integration of the realization that we can't possess life, we can't take life as a private property. There is the flow, the unstoppable flow of life. And these are just samples of how, when a person is sitting in a circle with friends, we will abide with this inquiry that then leads us into, as we abide individually together with a connective inquiry chain, to also through that create meditative spaciousness, which we are describing, to facilitate softening presence that awakens the inner lives. So much of the preoccupation of technological, high-speed, modern living shuts down the inner lives. Creating the meditative ecology together with a circle of friends enables us to create spaciousness. The people that followed the Universalis series from the beginning will remember that we started the journey with phase one of the Universalis 1,000 Faces was to make space, to create space. So meditative abiding with a circle of friends is one way to create that spaciousness and to facilitate the softening that bring the inner lives into the conversation. And in that sense, we then brought inside the discovery the second verse that offered learning to stand and walk, and then every learning step since has been an expression of the will and power of life. When I abide with this stem to begin to discover how it wants to flower in me, I find tremendous comfort and confidence and fortitude in knowing that throughout my life, when I try to sense into the earlier stages of life, I don't think I can remember me just standing and learning to walk. But I have looked and observed carefully with joy and admiration and love my 16 months grandson who just went through the phase from crawling to standing and walking literally in the last 2-3 months. And now running around. And so I can see it on him, and I can feel that chain of a rising expression of life through me. And I remember even in the last few months observing him and holding this thought of what I'm seeing is the will and the power of life arising through him as he expands into new capacities, and he is now standing, and he is now walking, and he is now beginning to run around. So for me, this stem invites me to the awesomeness and the awe with the power of life to reveal itself through those capacities as they are being activated.
This verse also brings to my memory the times when my daughters started to walk, or started the attempts to go from 4 to 2. And I remember the trial and error, and again and again, and the amazing effort of coordinate all the muscles and the weight balances, and going back, going forth, going with the head down. It was a miracle. But in relation to the soft life that you said before, I was also remembering the ecology of support that we created by giving them the hand, by taking away all furnitures where they could be injured, by supporting them, go and also confirming and encouraging and congratulating them. And I'm thinking there are these inner lives, there are these strong powers in us, but there's also the soft lives. And those lives need a different ecology. They need a softer voice. They need encouragement. So this is the first ripples of what this is causing.
Yeah, I've been thinking quite a bit about the will and power of life recently, because it's so evident in not only in the micro world, in looking at children and our own lives, but in a way asking the metaphysical question, really, what is it that has such a will and power that will keep life moving forward, moving to find the next steps of humanity's evolution? It's the bigger aspect. And just on the learning aspect, again, observing the toddler life, what I find utterly fascinating is that, and again, it can be taken into the macro, from the micro, is the sense of pushing it at the edge, but not over pushing the edge. And the natural caution, it is quite fascinating how a child will come up to a step and won't hurtle over the step and crash headlong, will stop. And with my grandson at first, he would then sit down and shuffle round. And this time when he was visiting, he worked out how to hold the wall at the side and take the step down. And it was evident in many, many things, not having seen him for a few months, that step-by-step journey and the caution. I thought he would make a good mountaineer, because it's that bravery at the edge, but not doing something rash and unthought out. Absolutely fascinating to watch. But we can take that into the story of humanity and pushing at all those edges, but without falling over a cliff, but taking the next steps for what's possible.
And this leads us to the third verse that invited us to abide with: there is learning through pain, and learning latent in love and joy. The agents of learning and development are many. What are some of the feelings and meditative senses that arise with you when you consider this verse?
This takes me really deep, this particular verse, because we have this aversion of pain, and it's natural because it's painful. And when we go through it, we suffer, or when a person close to us or a situation is painful. Of course, it is an experience that it's hard, it's not easy, and it can be there are levels of pain, of course. But definitely there is learning through that process, and there is maturation. There is strengthening. There is building inner capacities that not be unlocked otherwise. And to be able, when you go through pain, to abide with it and you feel the pain, but you also learn that this may pass and it will make you stronger. There's no doubt that it will make you stronger. And also that there is learning in love and in joy. So these are not exclusive, like people only want love and joy, or we may only want difficult situations. And so to be able to also vacillate from pain to love, sometimes it happens from one moment to the other. I think it's part of the richness and the depth of life and the experience of being a human.
Yeah, this makes me think of the different ways we learn. And there's if I think of latent in love and joy, it's almost like a sense of being within the womb, we were speaking of earlier, within an ecology that is endearing and is promoting of a certain natural unfolding. I think of the nurseries and the ecologies that, allow that to go on. But then there's the other side of learning when things will come into a life, not necessarily the expected. In a way, they impinge upon the womb, as it were, and they cause a different response and they cause a different sense of learning. And there's no comparison between the two. That's all part of the toing and froing, the pitch and the yawing, the exchange and the interaction of living a life. And learning is a wonderful thing. It's deep, it's profound, and it's multi-vectored. And this is just touching on that.
One of my realizations in this is that actually there is no love and joy without pain. Love and joy always, sooner or later, will also accompany pain. So what is presented here is obviously not a polarity, but rather an integration of the multifaceted nature of the experience of being human. And where it takes me to is it connects me to the first verse, because now I can begin to meditate. Oh, I have arrived in this life with a can-do model so that I could stand, and so that I could walk, and so that I could dance, and so that I could sing, so that I could do all these things. And so that by doing all those things that a human can do, I will experience pain, and experience love, and experience joy. And through experiencing pain and love and joy and the learning that they bring. Could it be then that this very learning process, which is the very nature of life, we are almost discovering here that one way to feel what life is the flow, the wash of the universe learning through its being. I am jumping to verse 10 a bit, but we will get there in a minute. And that therefore the can-do model and the experience of pain and love and joy is where we begin to ferment this idea of universal consciousness that was seeded in the first verse. So we begin to see how the connective flow of these verses can unlock potential. And so it leads me to offer in this next realization, what does abiding circle meditation enable? Well, it enables a process that is dialectic in nature, enable a dialectic embrace and pacifying release in the semi-conscious, because some of the pain and some of the joy is not fully metabolized. And when we are in these kind of considerations, we can begin to metabolize more fully. There is in this process, without one person teaching another person, without one person telling any other person what they need to do, but rather, as you're describing, in the ecology that we together create, it allows us to metabolize and transmogrify and release pain and difficulty and struggle and trauma, and to induct healing presences through this process. So what would you like to bring to life as we unfold this? Or actually, let me see this with you and bring the next verse so you can speak to that. Yeah, so that's right. So the next series of verses actually attended to that, because verse 4, let's do this. Let me bring the next few verses, and Karen, perhaps you can read these and then speak to what they bring up in you.
Why do I experience resistance and struggle along the journey of discovery as I seek new and deeper connections? Why do we struggle with each other? When I struggle and feel resistance, what is the potential and purpose latent in these moments?
So, yeah, we arrived to this life in a can-do model, the soul and spirit and universal consciousness, to appreciate that through standing and learning to walk and all the wonderful things that we then learn that a human can do, we can also experience joy and pain and all the many other agents of learning. And now the abiding meditative process led us into the inquiry of why do we struggle? And why do we struggle when we meet resistance through life with all the many things we attempt to do? And then inside it, why do we humans struggle with each other? And when we struggle and feel resistance, what is the potential? What is the deeper purpose latent in these moments? So what are these inviting and promoting in you?
If we didn't change, or we didn't want to learn or develop or become other than we are, then maybe we wouldn't feel these struggles and these resistances quite so acutely. And I think this is just kind of one sense, because I think this is many, many layered, is to do with everything having gradients and levels, and that things there's not an amorphous, one life isn't just a one thing. It's totally multiple in the immediate ecology and environment of people one is close to, and the struggles with the people one meets. There's the life which is the bigger social sphere, the groupings that one meets with and engages with. And then there's the kind of deeper purpose that one may choose to be involved with. And all of these have resistances and moments of connection, and you always can't have one without the other, but it's finding the balances and finding the core, in a way, the core center of gravity that one can respond and work through these levels from, so that the resistances in a way have a purpose to work through them and metabolize them and bring them into a cohesion. I think that's how I look at resistances these days, is if something turns up as a resistance or a blockage or a barrier, I think, well, where is the elevating cohesion that will allow the movement through? And it may be hard to find that, and that may be the struggle that causes a deepening or a reappraisal of how things were thought about before, or a complete shaking up, or a deepening of a trace or a trajectory that was already fortified and is given more fortification to move on through something. So that's a bit of this and a bit of that, but it's to do with the gradients and levels, and again this powerful will to learn and to be what is possible, and allow something to not be stopped, not to hit barriers and then think, okay, that's as far as I'm going, I'm gonna leave it at that. There's always a momentum, and the momentum is stronger than my adding up or my perception of things at this time, because I'm mindful that that is biased and limiting. So there's always another view, another way of coming at something.
I loved what you brought, Karen, also about the prospect of elevating cohesion hidden in every struggle. This was This is a very important question for me. Why do we struggle with each other? The previous one. It's a question that I have for many years, and maybe a whole book can be written about it. And I wonder, were we meant to struggle, or is our culture, our way of going on, making us struggle? I think it's both. Probably we were meant to struggle, but some struggles could be avoided. But I really, really wonder, especially when I struggle with people that I truly love, like my children or friends or partner. And why do we struggle? We love each other. So really, what is the reason we struggle? And I think it goes with it's like, let's say, the price we pay for being unique and for being different. Maybe if we were all the same, we wouldn't struggle. I don't know, or maybe we would still struggle. But one of the consolations, or when you can't do anything else, you say, okay, we're different. So this is what's coming up. But it's still a question for me. It's very alive. Why do we struggle? Can we struggle less? What are the behavioral science to soften the hard edges? Although I think some fights are healthy, and standing your own ground is healthy. But it leads me, it's really opening multiple dimensions and thoughts on why do we struggle with each other.
Yes. Well, the first realization that's activated here for me is indeed the desk in front of me, or this glass of water, or the chair I'm sitting on. They don't struggle, they are fixed. Now, we humans, we struggle because, as you said, Karen, we are going through change. And as I meditate about it, indeed there are many reasons as to why we struggle. One of the first realizations in that is that we are not one thing, we are multiple lives within. And some nature of the struggle is those parts trying to get harmonized, to come together into a symphonic arrangement. And when there is discordance, because this realization that we are a soul and a spirit and many other internal lives and capacities, and the brain has its processes, and the liver and the gut their processes, and science tells us that they are in a way their own quote-unquote brains in what they do in their own process. So those different inner organs and inner lives, they have their rhythm and their cadence and the qualities that they bring up in us, and also the sometimes conflicting needs and conflicting timing. So there is a struggle that's emerging on the inside because of the full orchestra that we are in and the demands of living a life in an exterior world while you are forever in the journey of harmonizing the interior world you are living in and represent. And then there is all the other struggle that emerge, because we are surrounded by other people who, like us, are not one thing, but many things. You thought you married one person, but in that one person you married, there are 70 different qualities and natures and desires and aspirations, and at different times, different aspects come alive. And along the journey of life, in the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, they discover themselves that they are a different person to who they thought they were 5 years or 10 years or 15 years earlier. So, and you are inside the same house and in this ecology, so of course there will be friction, of course there will be conflict, of course there will be struggle. It's the very nature of a multiplicity, living with a multiplicity, and actually that is the very nature of the learning and development process of the universal human, learning to facilitate, to accommodate, to integrate all those different dimensions that we are on the inside and that the people around us are on the inside. And a lot of the time, we actually get to discover parts of ourselves that we never were able to access through other people, sometimes through joy and love and resonance and support, and sometimes through struggle. So we are in this meditation, where it leads me is into the immense value and appreciation for the crucible that a life is in terms of its experience through resistance. And that actually there is no new knowledge, there is no new development, there is no new connection and communion possibility without going through layers upon layers upon layers of resistance. And then I begin to wonder very much where Kyriaki, where you were in the last few thoughts of, so okay, but so which of these struggles are still necessary for me, or is it possible for me to relax certain struggles and embrace new kinds of struggle? In other words, there is one struggle that will arise in me when I seek to foster the quality of patience and the quality of endurance and staying with things. And then when I do, it will lead to new kind of struggles. So can I choose to take responsibility and authorship as to how I live into my struggle? This is some of where this leads me. And then where it led next was, okay, so we learn to metabolize and release some of those dimensions, and we have the assistance that we are doing this together in an ecology where other people are exploring similar spaces. Now, if you went to a Zen or a Buddhist temple where the practice is to actually get into the empty mind and sit in one posture for 5 hours without moving, and if you did move, or if you scratched, you'd be screamed at in some disciplines, which, fair enough, is a very powerful methodology to unlock certain capacity in the human. What we are describing in this collective circle meditation is that by abiding with those kind of inquiries, we are unlocking different processes. Because in this case, we were invited to shift from the referencing brain, where we can just say things about things, to a whole person melting and merging. And the interior melting and merging and harmonizing of different feelings and different sentiments and inner states, and feeling the waves of energy, and going with one chain of thoughts and letting those thoughts not just be words or concepts, but letting ourselves feel what do these actualities represent. This is where we introduce the idea that we could be with this journey in several ways. We show 5 pathways. We could be in the research, in the decoding, in the puzzling work, some of which we are discovering and representing and demonstrating in our conversation. And we could be, some choose to be with this in a somatic discovery, to sense where they want to move. Do they want to move close in and be in the very small movements that the human system enable us, or do they want to do open, large, vast movements? Do they want to move fast, or do they want to move very slow? Sense and feel through and around your system, your body, your energy system, and the ecology. And some would actually be more inclined to be with those, not so much in just staying with the words, but to express and be with the discovery in abiding with drawing, with movement, with music, with singing, which actually I saw yesterday some people do, because everybody was muted on Zoom, so you could be in your meditative contemplation singing without being disruptive to anybody else. There are some benefits to doing this on Zoom. I've done this many times with groups of people in person, in a shared ecology. In the virtual ecology, everybody could be in their time zone, in the comfort of their home, and be expressive in this way. And then for some, it was very much what we are beginning to sense here, the way of generating the sentiments, the feelings, the conductive states, and abiding with the feeling. If I allow myself to bring up certain struggle or certain pain, can I abide with that pain or with that struggle, to appreciate the content that it brings up in me and the learning that it brings up in me, and not think that in this meditative abiding I need to bypass it or run away from it or be afraid of it. Actually, no, I'm okay with it, and I'm okay seeing how it melts inside me, the tightness that I may feel in my chest, the tightness that I may feel in my stomach. Can I actually relax even that? And when I relax that, what am I learning that's available for me as I learn to release struggle? And in and along all that, the continual contemplative inquiry of why. Why is this part of the human experience? Why do we need to struggle if we are to learn and develop? Why is this indeed, as you said, some of the struggle is naturally part of the arising of life, and some struggles are perhaps not natural, they are part of the conditioning and how the social and socio-economic system was developed in recent centuries. And can I actually differentiate between those struggles? And daring to inquire for myself about the what, the where, the when, the how, and then inquire further. What would you offer from your experience and how you have been and are in your own inclination with those different ways of being with a meditative abiding process?
I know that when these were presented, they opened up. They were more than suggestions. They were like live ways of different expressions and different versatilities that were possible, and they had a huge richness about them, and each has its particular nature. Yesterday I settled on the sentiment pathway, and rather than just go into the meditation, possibly with that vaguely, by having the choice, I had a real clarity about it, and it prompted me to find a particular energy location, which would be different if I went in. I think today I'm looking a little bit more through the discovery pathway, puzzling it out a little bit more. And that's calling on certain sort of mental frameworks and configurations, which is another source of energy and power. So I think it's another example of, by presenting a differentiation, there's a richness that can be explored with a specific approach, and that involves how one approaches it, the energies one uses, and ultimately the results that would be allowed. I think there's more here, but I'll stop there.
I would say that it's the great richness of the human expression, and how we can process in a throughout way a thought, a feeling, a concept, a question. And sometimes we may need to dance this question. And sometimes we may need to sing this essence and really be like an instrument that tunes with a particular rhythm, the particular tonality, and bring it to life, give it sound, give it movement, or any artistic expression. And it's such a marvelous thing to do. And it's people have been contemplating in this way by singing together for thousands of years, not something new, or dancing together, or alone. And it's a wonderful thing to do, because we experience now art more as a declension. So it's been something that is commercialized, and it's like a product, but in its origin, it was really a bursting heart, connecting with something that you could not contain, and you just wanted to express it, to connect with it, to invite it more, to transmit it. And these are very, very powerful and healing realms of art, sacred realms. We don't see them very much in the world, although some very devoted and dedicated artists, they really manage to connect and transmit higher meditative realms.
Not fully revealed or implicit here, but is nevertheless contained here, is the idea of walking meditation, and walking alone, and also walking or making a pilgrimage together with a group. And I've done both. For me, the somatic and sentiment pathways are very much joined with the discovery pathway, sometime by walking, sometime by actually lightly jogging, and believe it or not, also by swimming. So one of the things I do before I facilitate and lead a day like yesterday, I will sometimes go to swim for half an hour, and as I swim, through the entire half an hour, it's like I see the movie of the day. I go through the flow of the whole process, and it configures itself in me in that silent isolation while I'm swimming. And that's part of my preparatory interior conductivity generation that enables me to lead such multifaceted days. So what we are describing here is another aspect of the universalis human, the fact that we are given all these capacities. And what you're describing is, you have chosen yesterday, Karen, to come into the sentiment actually with a particular quality. And a different day you will choose to go along for the abiding with others in a different capacity. And part of what I did yesterday, as you may have sensed, was I was in a healing transmission capacity. So I held a healing ecology to facilitate and ease people in and through the discovery. That's how I have been in it, which was not mental at all. I was more inside the presencing of healing properties, which afforded me a different way of being and abiding with the ecology. And often I will do that when I am called to facilitate and lead a process. It's not about the words I will offer on point. It's more, can I be healing unto myself first, and then invite people to discover the healing process in themselves, which led in this loom that I created this morning to integrate the idea that we get to, in a meditative abiding like this, to engender the greater awareness of the subtle body, the somatic subtle body, and also the subtle body of the mental processes, because each organ has its subtle energetic body, and together they constitute a configuration of presences. And when we slow down and listen inside, we can feel those dimensions, which we invited in this abiding meditation with this verse, which said, "This thing I am resisting. What am I afraid will happen if I let it be?" And this one, Karen, that I'll ask you to do and give us a voiceover.
What would happen if I relaxed more deeply? If I accepted and then released concerns and worries, and felt that all is safe and well, what would happen?
So truly an invitation to drop down even deeper into that sense of presence. And what we are describing in the soul work as the knowing discovery that all is well, that the soul is undamaged, that at some deep soul spirit core essence configuration of ourselves, we are undamaged. With all the struggles and all the pains, there is a permanent presence of light. It may be contracted, it may not be fully expressed in its fullest versatility and luminosity, and yet even then it is fully intact in each and every one of us. What are the feelings and sense that arose with you as you reflected on that?
I can't exactly recall what I came to yesterday, because I was writing, in a way, I was writing something that had its own life, in spite of what we were reading. The two were working together. But when I look at that now, I think it's really very much at the heart of the Homo Universalis work. And it somehow it's drawing upon, this is number 14 of our conversations, and I think there is a huge amount of settlement in the Homo Universalis work that reflects into this relaxing more deeply. And it would be very dismissive to be at this stage and not acknowledge that there are things that have become part of how I think about human life, how I think about this life, how the concerns and worries are put in a larger context and less of a personal, narrow location, and that all is safe and well. Well, this is a very fine line between talking about things that from a naivety of all is safe and well, and from a worked out location that all is safe and well. Because clearly the state of the world at the moment is not safe and well. However, there are realizations and there are settlements that are kind of engendering of the resolve and the fortitude to move on with the work that needs to be done from a place of it's hard to find the right words, because these are very, very fine. They're quite personal locations, I think. And I don't want to just sort of put the words there that aren't quite the right ones, but it's I think one of the core elements in this is to do with resilience, and it's to do with the pivots, to do with being able to find the deeper location to move on from, and not to be dismissive of the concerns and worries, but put them in the right location, to not let them diminish and dismiss and become something that they're not. If I was in a position now, which I know some of our friends are, with very large concerns and worries because of where they're living or their situation in their lives, then I would probably answer this in a different way. But for me, I don't have huge concerns and worries beyond the petty struggles of day-to-day life. And that gives me a kind of a charge upon my life, because I can, to get on and do and somehow allow more of the flow, more of the permissions of what are trying to access human life at this point to to pass on their intelligences, so I can be a Homo Universalis agent for the future, and not have a focus on the concerns and worries. I think what I'm trying to get at, I think, is to do with allowing things to flow through and not be stopped by unnecessary elements. I hope that has made some sense.
Well, yes, it did. And also in that is the recognition that what this invites us is not to a make-believe wishful thinking that bypasses concerns and worries. If we live in the world, we will have concerns and worries. What this invites to is the recognition of a spiritual interiority and actuality that is not bypassing, not dismissing, not ignoring concerns and worries, but that nevertheless imbues a presence that unto itself is indestructible and undisrupted. And in that indestructibility, there is an assurance and comfort. Now, again, this is invited into not as one person projecting to another person who is at a point of struggle, but what we invited as part of a chain of abiding meditation circle inquiry. Oh, what would happen? What would happen in my system? What would happen to my sensitivity? What would happen to my awareness? What would happen to my brain chemistry when I truly let go and I truly release any unnecessary resistance? What would you say to this, Kyriaki?
They're fascinating also to listen to both of you. Yeah, there is one part in me that is a professional warrior. And I often have to relax it or make a pause. So I think one of the ways that to really go deeply in this is maybe the acceptance that this part will die. Let's say will one day die. The more egoic part, the personality. And that releases, I think, the worries and concerns that many of it have to do with this more egoic part in us that wants to win, that wants to prove that is someone taking advantage of me, or I'll show them, all the worries. And of course, there are some very real life circumstances that, as Karen said, there's no way that you don't worry. But you can also sit in your house and worry whether your child will have an accident or something. But as you said, Aviv, connecting with higher sources that are beyond this life, I think it's a way to elevate from this state of worry, and also sometimes be a little bit humorous. I find as an attitude, it's a way for me that releases me from worry and all this.
And the process then unfolds. So it's curious, because I'm interspersing and intermerging here, interspersing and intermerging two different processes. One is those verses and my contemplative meditation about the contemplative meditation, which is what is this process enabling, and I'm knitting those together. And the more we unfold these interior dimensions, where I recognize that, okay, there is a part of me that, as you say, is a professional warrior. You like to worry about a million things. Guilty as charged, me too. And there is a breakthrough that occurs when I recognize that I am not my worries. And my worries are not me. They are a part of my executive function, because there are people I love and situations I care for and circumstances that I attend to. And my system forever alerts me to what I need to take care of. And it's part of what I embrace with the joy of living. And then there is a whole other space inside me that lives into another dimension. And one is not ignoring or dismissing the other. The universalis human has so much space and is so larger than the limitation of the physical body. I can have enough space for all those dimensions. And as I do, I cultivate increasing inner conductivity, which is actually how I build the interior space. And where the process then leads to here is, and again, Karen, I'll ask you to offer a voiceover to that, because you have already, both of you mentioned that.
As I reflect on all that I've been able to release and overcome, I'm filled with gratitude and awe. I say to myself softly now, you're loved and cherished more than you will ever know. The whole of you, including every part. Can you let this realization in?
You are loved and cherished more than you will ever know. The whole of you, including every part. Every part. can you let this realization in? You are surely and truly loved and cherished more than you will ever know by so much that is forever in support of your arising and of your human journey. The whole of you, the many lives within, the parts you even shun and pretend are not there because you feel a sense of inadequacy or shame. Well, these parts too enable your discovery of who you are as a human. So you are loved and cherished, the whole of you, including every part. Sometime when you will invoke and invite that realization, there will be a flood of release of emotions and tears, partly because there are people who never felt assured or certain about that fact. And sometimes there will be people who either for a long time or never heard this voice, either from the outside and also from the inside. But it is an actual fact, the proof of which is life itself. You're here, we're here, I'm here. So I never say something like this with a preaching voice. I say something like this because I remind myself, and I will say to myself, you are loved and cherished. I am loved and cherished more than I will ever know. The whole of me, including every part. Can I let this realization in? And in part, the design of the circle meditation is to offer this cascading flow of allowing what surfaced by reflecting on resistance and struggle and concern and worry, to then unleash and unlock the melting energy of gratitude and reverence and awe, and the sense that we're uplifted, we are fortified, we are loved by life, and often we are surrounded by people that love us very much, which is also an expression of the love of life. Anything you would offer in this, please?
I think this is a great balm of healing. And I really wish every human and every child and every old person, everyone would really, really feel and appreciate this love, even if they live in circumstances that they are surrounded by unloving people. They're still loved. They're still loved. And all of them. And especially also the parts that are difficult, they are also loved. Because they are part of the human. I mean, I feel this love for my children. And I love them exactly as they are. With I don't show it all the time, but it's true. And then I'm thinking of maybe the maternal love that we receive from something greater than us and paternal love. So I think there is a great healing in really feeling and deeply appreciating this verse. And I just want to read it myself because I want to say it. You are loved and cherished more than you will ever know. The whole of you, including every part. Can you let this realization in?
Part of what, as Karen, I'll invite you to make space, and as a bridging, I will add that what it invokes in me is a permission to reparent myself, to remother and refather me. And for me, that is one of the dimensions of the universalis human. As we show up to this life through our parents. As Karen started us today with this mystical contemplation that I still hold in my mind, where the daffodil or the sunflower, they come out of the stem, but can we mystically imagine that, first of all, we can't anticipate when it's purely the stem that such a glowing flower will emerge there. It's almost as though there is a whole new octave of appearance that comes out of nowhere. And in a similar way, I meditate and contemplate the sense of universalis life, a universal life, through the sense that we can each parent ourselves into that possibility. And where does it begin? It begins with choosing to accept myself and find in me the sense of universal love. I want to abide with what does it mean to find universal life in me, towards the fact that I'm alive, and then towards the fellow humans that are along on this journey with me. These are some of the deep, abiding, meditative contemplations that lead me into the womb of universal life.
This is a challenging one. When I came up against this yesterday, I thought, no, I can't let this realization in. It was quite stark, actually. But then the other side of that is in how we've been talking about resistance, and what I felt, and I feel it now actually, is a little bit of a tear, a little bit of a softening. And that is the wonderful realization in itself that things can melt. Nothing is fixed and nothing is enduring forever. The indelible things are things that are of creation. Resistance and overlays that will prevent the endurable things of the universe and creation and life itself from pervading throughout a life. They have the potency not the things that resist. And they can melt. And
well, may I ask? May I actually ask, in the spirit of us being here live, could you speak to a bit to the nature of the resistance? Because I don't think you're the only person that will find that stark resistance in facing and melting our way into this. So how would you characterize some of the resistance?
It probably originates in the "you are loved," and I'm thinking, well, by who? By what? Where does that originate? And we're not talking just about, my parents have passed now, and the family and that is one aspect. This is something else. This is to do with the human possibility. This comes back to the seed of consciousness and the very first verse that we started off with about how we are alive, or we have arrived here. And we've arrived here from more than our physical form. We've arrived with a spirit, with a soul. And these are connective realms. And I think what this is questioning deep within is what order of connection do I have with these different multiple parts of the life? And I think the resistance is probably thinking of it my life a little bit too singular, and not with the diversity and depth of the human life. But that, in the context of the loved and cherished, almost sounds a little bit mental and a little bit rigid. So this is the resistance.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I appreciate that you are offering that, and that's again where sometime, whenever we lead a process like this, different people will have resistance with different language formulation. I have shared in a different conversation years ago, earlier in the Portals development, that I have struggled with the word love for many years, because I was born and raised in a culture where it was always obvious to me that my father loved me, but he never said it. It was just not part of the Israeli culture to say to children, I love you. I think now everybody is saying it in Israel too, but it wasn't part of that generation. They didn't speak like this. And at the same time, I knew that he loved me very much. And there was tremendous evidence for it. And when our son was born, I discovered that I felt inhibited in my behavioral freedom to use the word love in this way. So I went on the inner journey and pilgrimage to melt, to thaw the freedom to say I love you. But even now, sometime when I meet with him, and he is now has his own family and his own children, and there is still a little residue of being born and raised in a macho culture in an earlier stage when one man didn't say to another man, I love you. And every time I will choose to say it, I have an inner smile that I feel, where it has that sense of I'm not a subject to my upbringing. I have liberated a greater versatility. Now, when it comes to this meditative abiding here, I listen to my breath and how every breath I take is a telling that life loves itself through me, that life loves me and I love life as I experience life. There is, and then when I feel my pulse. And it has that same sense that life pulsates through me, and that in itself is an expression of something is cherishing this opportunity, not in the emotional, personalized love sense or the romantic love sense, which is why one of the earliest conversations I had with Jeff Vanderklut was walking through 7 different natures of love, and I'm not suggesting to reenact it here, but it's that sense of finding the love of life. And then it goes in me, Karen, to where you landed, which is, so what about those other luminescent properties? The fact that a soul and a spirit will find residence inside a clumsy, sometime amazing can do, but sometimes stumbling its toes into something hard model, and the spirit and the soul will not say, you're a jerk, you can't even walk straight, we're leaving you. No, I'm still attended by those dimensions and by those extraordinary presences. So it affords me the deep knowing that life is a flow of this forever regathering, renewing permission to try again and to make another regenerative attempt, and that in itself is pure love in the universal sense, which, to complete now the mystery of this loom, brings in me the sense of activating latent circuitries and sense organs as I settle deeper into these registrations. And in the meditation, we stayed with this, and I'll ask you to give a voiceover to this, Karen.
Blessings of the Most High are hovering over me now. When I allow this luminescent healing in, the whole universe quivers with joy as it finds its rebirth with me.
Which is saying in different words what the previous slide was saying. It describes the nature of this universal love. It describes that I and we humans are never without, never alone, even when we feel lonely. If we can just settle in to sense the spiritual source out of which we come and that is forever hovering around us with healing and possibility, then we feel this immense actuality that we are never not part of. And in the loom I cultivated here, I included that, well, when we do this work together, as the three of us are doing it right here, right now, we enter a communion with the redeeming, blessing, and causing realms, where life originates, where life forever regathers and regenerates us, and where we find not just comfort, but regenerative, and dare I even say, resurrective kind of possibilities, which is why the last verse of the meditative abiding we've been in invited, and would you give this one a voiceover, please?
The journey of becoming a priest, priestess of the human possibility is.
And it was left as a stem for it to flower with each one of us. And where it flowers in me is a recognition that we can each be the stem for this possibility. We can each be the portal for the Most High that never wished to not be with humans, but that we so much shrink and contract and separate ourselves from by all sorts of modern conventions. And that in actuality, all the spiritual traditions and all the religious texts and all that has accompanied human life from the beginning of time was always and is always an invitation to realize that we are the that we are the crown jewel of the universal process here on this planetary theater and planetary stage, and that it more often than not feels like a never-ending struggle, but that in actuality, when we can presence ourselves to this, when we can get tethered, we are and we become the priests and the priestesses of human possibility, and thereby of the universe at large, as it births itself through us. So that's how this flowered in me. What would you offer as a concluding flowering in you?
I'd like to just read what I wrote yesterday.
Please.
Which was very simple, wasn't very long. The rest of the process was quite long, but not an answer. I'll read the question. The journey of becoming a priest, priestess of the human possibility is. Not an answer, but a doing, a being, a living. To dance in the stars as we are of kind and because we can, should we choose to do so.
That was very powerful, and thank you for your gift. And but this evoked in me. It's more a sense that to become a priest or priestess of the human possibility, it's really to say in oneself, by your own choosing, that as long as I'm alive, I'll do everything, that the human will not fall, that what the human was meant to be will not fall. This is what it brings in my assembly.
Well, how about if we leave it there in this mystery, that we are all in a pilgrimage journey to the becoming and the liberating of the priest and priestess dimensions of life and of human possibility, that when we do so, we are birthing a universalis human, a human universal possibility. Thank you for staying with us on this journey, to be continued.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aviv and Kyriaki.
Along with our website at portalsofperception.org, Portals is also available on YouTube and on all podcast platforms, as well as social media. You can become an active member and join the conversation in community events. And you can help us get the word out by liking this content and by sharing it with your friends.